President Trump says that General Soleimani was planning a, quote, imminent attack against Americans. You have said it was a, quote, big action that could potentially kill hundreds of American diplomats and soldiers. What was the plan? Who were the targets, and how soon?
Yes, President Trump was right in what he said, so was I. We'll share all the intelligence that we can. I was the CI director for a little while, Chris. There's things we simply cannot make public about what it is we knew at that time and what, in fact, we know today about the continuing activity. I think General Milley got it right when he said we would have been culpably negligent had we not gone after Soleimani when we had the opportunity. He was actively engaged in plotting against American interests. We need to look no further than what he had personally done over the days before that, where an American was killed on December 27th. There's no surprise. There's plenty of public evidence about the bad behavior of Qasem Soleimani. He was a designated terrorist, and we did the right thing.
I just want to press to this degree. He had been targeting Americans and other people around the region for decades. The blood of 600 Americans was on his hands during the Iraq War. The question is that there are some intelligence agents who are talking to media outlets who are saying, yes, he was doing bad things, but it was another day in the Middle East. And some congressional leaders who have been briefed now say that the intelligence was not of an imminent attack that was bigger, more worrisome. Don't the American people have the right to some understanding of what it was, why it was so urgent to take out Soleimani now?
It's interesting. I haven't heard any of the congressional leaders who have seen the full set of intelligence make the comments that you just described. I think any reasonable person who saw the intelligence that the senior American leaders had in their possession would have come to the same conclusion that President Trump and our leadership team did about the fact that there would have been more risk to America. More risk through inaction than there was through the action that we took. I think it's very clear. I think it's very plain. We'll do everything we can to share this information with the American people. But I think the American people understand too. There's certain things you just can't put out in public. You got to protect Americans who are out collecting the intelligence we will need in the days and weeks ahead to continue to defend and protect them.
Now, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Mike Pompeo will blindly defend Trump's every move, but to do so as the situation in Iran continues to rapidly deteriorate is definitive proof that there is no adult in the room with Donald Trump. Pompeo's appearance on Chris Wallace's show comes only days after Trump ordered the killing of Soleimani, the general of Iran's IRGC and commander of its Quds forces. Only there was a number of strategic and legal issues with the strike. First, the legality of the strike itself is in question, considering launching a strike without congressional approval requires the presence of an imminent threat, which the White House has refused thus far to identify. And in fact, a correspondent for the New York Times who spoke with intelligence officials claimed that evidence suggesting an imminent attack on American targets by Iran to be, quote, razor thin. But beyond that, the administration claims that this was done as a means of de-escalation, only to witness the following events take place as a direct result. The US-led coalition has suspended operations against ISIS as resources are reassigned to protect US facilities and personnel. In other words, we can't fight terrorists because now we have to defend our own interests from retaliation. The Iraqi parliament has voted to expel US forces from Iraq, given that even they weren't notified that we'd be using their country as a theater to assassinate a head of state. And so we've now lost one of our most vital strategic footholds in the Middle East. Moderates have now united with hardliners in Iran in mourning the death of Soleimani, all but ensuring hardline rule in Iran for the foreseeable future. Here's footage from Soleimani's funeral. Suffice it to say, he was not unpopular. Missiles are now being fired at US bases and our embassy in Iraq, again putting Americans in immediate danger. A purported cyber attack was launched on the US Federal Depository Library website, setting the stage for what may amount to massive, ongoing, large-scale cyber warfare that 2016 has already shown us to be vulnerable to. And finally, Iran has announced that it will no longer abide by any limits of its 2015 nuclear deal that the European Union was still holding them to. That means no restrictions on uranium enrichment, no restrictions on the number of centrifuges, and no restrictions on R&D. Iran will now be a nuclear power. And all of this happened while Trump was on his golf course. Now, to make matters worse, the administration isn't even trying to contain the fallout from this disastrous decision. For example, Pompeo knows how much controversy surrounding the strike there is. He knows that the American public does not think it was justified, especially since it's looking more and more like we'll get embroiled in a war with Iran because of it. And so, if he really had the proof of an imminent attack that this administration says it has, why wouldn't he share it? If not with the American people, then at least Democrats in Congress, those who represent the majority of Americans. Why wouldn't he simply give a justification to prove, since the proof is reportedly there, that the killing of Soleimani was warranted? It is the government's job to keep us safe, and right now the only source that we have is an administration led by a guy who cannot tell the truth if his life depended on it, who wants us to take at face value that there was some imminent attack that they refuse to expand upon, while the only effect we're witnessing is Iran vowing retaliation against the United States and rockets being launched at our embassies and soldiers. We are less safe because of what this administration did, meaning that a government whose job it is to keep us safe and secure is failing at their job. The fact is, while the Republican Party gets off on its insatiable appetite for war, while the Republican Party thinks it'll distract from impeachment, while the Republican Party thinks it'll unify the American people against Iran and help Trump going into the next election, none of these things are true. All they show is just how utterly unfit for office they are and how much damage they've done to this country and the world in just the short time that they've been in power.